Good afternoon, and I would like to welcome you to the Neighborhood Improvement Services Advisory Committee, our regular meeting here on June the 26th, 2023. What I'd like to do is I would like to call this meeting of the Neighborhood Improvement Services Advisory Committee to order. And I would like to thank all of the viewing audience for tuning in. I would also like to ask Ms. Gloria to lead us in invocation.
We'll bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, as we gather here tonight, we ask that it would be decent and in order, and for the citizens of Jacksonville, that we will do our best in all times, and in always make it possible for us to be out to help one and each and every one another. Father, we ask that you do all that you can to help the homeless and the people that are less fortunate than we are. Almighty God, I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I'd like to welcome all the staff members, and we'll do welcome and introductions, and we'll start.
I'm Marcia Wright. I'm representing, I think I'm here as a Jacksonville City Council appointee, and I guess I call myself a charter member since I've been here. Not quite charter, but I've been on this committee since 1987.
Okay.
Paula Jones, member.
Sorry, Ms. Paula.
Tracy Jackson, Director of Neighborhood Improvement Services. I am the staff liaison to this committee.
Pamela Trafton, Senior Neighborhood Improvement Services Coordinator.
Gloria Whitney, a member.
Brian Jackson, City Council Liaison.
Josh Ray, City Manager.
All right, I'm Will Smith. I am the chair. And at this time, what we're going to do is a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I sat down with the city manager and asked him, a couple questions so we can give an update of what's going on in our city, because I think it's very important. Being the neighborhood advisory, improvement services advisory committee, we kind of have to look out for everybody as a whole and not necessarily their representatives, because of course we were not voted in. That's why we have elected official Mr. Brian Jackson on here, and we have our city manager. But we still have to know updates on what's going on. And so we can, as citizens, kind of have the same ideals as the city. It's an old saying, and it's that old, how can two walk together except they be agreed? So if neither person kind of know what's going on, then we can't be in agreement on what is going on is what's best for our city. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the city manager for...
Bishop, we have to adopt the agenda.
Okay, so we do have to...
But we can't do it without a
Yeah,
quorum.
I thought we couldn't.
We need a quorum because that motion has to be made for that. So.
Yeah.
I thought we had to
Although we
approve.
can do a consensus, I don't think we
Right,
necessarily
let's
have
do
to
a
vote.
consensus.
Okay, we'll do a consensus, okay. Has everyone had the opportunity to review it? Yes? Okay, so are there any changes that we may have? Okay, so...
I would just like to give a brief report on our, which I might make after your remarks since it sort of ties in,
Yes, ma'am.
about the our Bayshore Estates neighborhood group has started back up, just to give you real quick.
Okay, yes, ma'am, and we'll do that. And so I'm sorry to the viewing audience, but we're going back one step to just actually make sure that we cover everything. So with the additions, and we got those, and we won't make a motion at this time to approve it. We'll make a consensus, and once we get the quorum, we'll go ahead and actually approve it and all those good things. So at this time, we will have the update from the city manager. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Bishop Smith. Appreciate you guys letting me be here today. Part of the conversation that Bishop Smith and Ms. Jackson and I had was about what's going on in the city, and then what is that vision and direction for what we're going to look like moving forward. Very exciting for us because we just completed our annual budget process, and outside of the budget, there are a number of projects that are bigger than just the city's interaction, because there are multiple community partners that are going on now. The YMCA is one, One Places Development is another. Boys and Girls Club now going into Sandy Run is a third project. There's a new baseball team that is a Woodback College Baseball League that's coming to the Jack Amiette Field next year. Those are four projects that seem to navigate outside of our day-to-day operations, which are real exciting. So for the council, as they approve $121 million operating budget for next year, The next part is to determine what's that path moving forward. City Council last year, to start the budget, had a budget retreat as well as a vision retreat. And so they were talking about areas that we want to look at moving forward. Council gave us 8 initiatives that included downtown redevelopment, that included cultural engagement, multiple projects, vision items that we need to do as a team as we try and chart a new path. But the other side of that is, how are we effective in utilizing our advisory boards, our partnerships, and our citizens to make sure that we're doing something effectively? One of the areas that we talked about was that vision in terms of neighborhood improvement services. What is that purpose? And so for us, that each commission, each board committee has to define that purpose as it goes back to the overall vision set by the council. 2 items I wrote down from the city council. The council adopted goals a couple of years ago. And goal number 1 is develop strategies to improve the quality of life, sustainability of the community, enhance employment opportunities, encourage economic development, and protect the environmental quality of Jacksonville. This board has the ability to guide everything that's inside of that goal number 1 of the city council, which is an incredible opportunity. Because what we have is, this year we decided that we want to maximize the utility of the action plan. There's a couple aspects here. The action plan, as you all know, especially you, been here for a number of years on this board, the action plan gives us the opportunity to gather input from citizens and to put that into a plan, i.e. an action plan. It delivers product that we need to use to guide our path. So what the action plan does for us, it gives us a mechanism for how we will fund projects outside of the day-to-day operations of the city. So that's something that's going to be a little different this year as we move forward. City Council is going to come together for a retreat, post-budget retreat in August, and they're going to talk about funding different projects throughout the city. What staff is going to present to them is the opportunity to utilize the action plan to funnel most of our requests through the action plan. You'll know this year that the council increased basically the general fund allocation inside of the action plan from $20,000 it varies to anywhere to $100,000. That type of increase this year. And we requested that of council, and council said, yes, this is a great idea because we want to utilize the opportunity to partner with different groups within the community to make things happen. Boys and Girls Club being one of those partners, to add to what they're doing now to increase their mission and their outreach. So utilizing that action plan creates an avenue for funding that I hope gives clarity to those outside partners for the process that they have to go through to be successful. We'll still have some challenges because there'll be people that come outside of that process, but we want to funnel everybody towards that. So back to this advisory committee, one of the challenges you'll have is being able to look at the vision set by the council every year and those initiatives, those 7 or 8 initiatives that the council sets, and then utilizing those initiatives inside of your process, utilizing the action plan. So another example of utilizing that plan, this year with the 5-year update, you don't get the opportunity just to think 1 year at a time. You've got to think about the next 5 years for where we're going to go. What I would challenge NESAC to do is to look at the entire city, not just what historically we've said are CDBG communities within our city, but look at the entire city. Because one of the dialogues that Tracy and I have talked about is, where are those redevelopment zones? They may occur on Western, they may occur over on, you name the street, right? It could be any street that you want to pick. We could decide that that's a redevelopment zone. That redevelopment zone may mean we go in with partners to build new houses. It may mean we partner with existing housing owners to improve their properties. It may also mean helping attract business to those areas, just the same. So that's where the economic development side comes into play and that quality of life. So part of that vision and that concept that I would hope that NESAC can look into is, how do we review the city and determine where our needs are the greatest? Not just in smaller pockets, But overall, what are we going to do? As the city moves forward with this concept of 400 acres of recreational land, one of the things we're going to do is we're not just focusing on the 400 acres, the new land that was purchased by the council to build recreation opportunities. We're going to utilize a public input session to determine how we maximize utility for all the land we have in the city. So the fields that we have over at Northeast Creek Park, the TT fields that are on base, the existing county school property that we can partner with, we're going to look at all of those properties and determine what's our best outreach for reaching citizens of all ages, not just young youth, but any age of individual that wants to be engaged. And I think that's part of where NESAC can really help us in terms of our processes, because I would like to see us expand the action plan. And I say that because we've had some concerns from members of our team about how do we get information from citizens. We want to get the greatest amount of input every single year. We want to make sure that citizens in every part of town are providing input through this process. And so that's our goal.
Yeah. And I want to, and that was the thing I was going to try to have you elaborate on, because we do have those input meetings, right? But that's once a year. And Citizen X does not know, hey, how do I know what I said during that meeting? It was carried all the way through because it was important. That something was done about it, an action, it got in the action plan, the feedback from that. And so that's when I was talking to Councilman Brian Jackson about maybe the council need to have road shows, more town halls, walkthroughs, so now they're engaged with those who actually voted them into office. So now it can be a collaboration between citizens coming to the input meeting, knowing what was given at the town halls, because now it's a focus group and not just this big bubble that they're thinking, well, do I even matter? Because that's what it kind of boils down to. So that was great, because that was the first thing of, the vision, the 5-year plan, and then how do they really get involved and how do we pull them in and keep their attention? And from an elected official and from the city manager, how does that play a part with us? How can we collaborate to make sure those things get done?
Part of that process is making sure that we appreciate the action plan. And I go back to this because it has been a lot of discussion for us this year. The action plan, we've focused on it historically as a means to connect HUD funds with HUD-focused projects, which is great, right? It has a purpose. But we can maximize that process to go outside of just using HUD funding to get back into communities. And I think that's where you hit the nail on the head. And then as Mr. Jackson points out, for us to take the walking show and talk to communities, that's a good input session for us. But then we have to carry it back and put that back into the process, which is probably where we lose a lot of that communication. We'll bring in projects and we'll try and take them on a tangent over here when we need to funnel them back over through, as I'm going to call it, Tracy's process. But we need to funnel them back to the same process because we have to be streamlined. Okay. If we lose that streamlining, then we drop some things by the wayside.
All right. And that was the point I was making, because I probably was too harsh on Ms. Tracy a little bit earlier about some processes that we've been going through and some projects that have been skipped her process altogether. And so I do hear from, our community about, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? And then so I came and talked to Ms. Tracy, which started kind of a lot of these different conversations on the why. And so that's where the road shows, and not necessarily they're gathering information, hey, I'm available, to the people who we voted in, Now, because they're frequently saw in the community, now when we have an input meeting, maybe a representative show up. Hey, I'm here, you can come talk to me here. And by the way, put some input in, because they want to see the elected officials in their neighborhoods. And now you get better input and quality input. Now it's not a lot of bickering, but it's actually solution-based. And so And I think that will kind of bring things full circle, so everybody gets a good product from where they sit at, if that makes sense.
And we get out to each individual area. That's why I say I'd love to see us focus, because when we're talking about redevelopment zones, we could be anywhere in the community. And so we want to make sure we're hosting multiple, so we're not only receiving the one type of dialogue, right?
Exactly.
One group doesn't deserve more of a voice than another group, and that's why we have to maximize that coverage. For council, they're set at a disadvantage because, like Mr. Jackson, if he's in food line, he gets pulled 3 different directions. If we're able to, and goes through council, if we're able to put that process back in a streamlined version, think about this year's process. You had one place, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and then last week we had Onslow Community Outreach and United Way all come with special requests. Well, 3 of those came through our process. Oh, let's throw in First Tee too. There's 6. 3 were in our process, 3 weren't in our process. So for council, we have to streamline it back into that process. So as crazy as it sounds, it protects them from having to look at special interest. And then they can look at the overall concept of how you create community, how it's one city and not one area of the city. And that's a challenge for these guys.
And I guess that's the point that I was making, is who's responsible for making sure that everything gets through that process and nothing gets kind of left out. And, because my name is Bishop Will Smith, so now I can circumvent the process instead of going.
Yeah, see, staff side, we do things administratively. Okay. So if we define this process and say everything has to go in there, that's what we handle. We handle what goes in, we handle what comes out, and then we present that to council. What these guys, as in the council, what they have to deal with, they're in a political world where requests come year round. And so the challenge for them is, if let's say, for example, it's a project that's been in the works for 22 years in the community and it comes to a head this year, hypothetically speaking, then council decides, let's go ahead and put this into the hopper. Let's decide, can that go through a vetting process and then be voted upon, or something that's brand new. For example, First Tee this year, brand new. It's never been here before, and they bring out a program for a request, and it comes through council, and then it gets back to staff. It missed our meetings. It had no chance to get in. Council had to decide, is this something that we put our funds behind? So I get anything that falls outside, it's going to be political things that go directly to council that bypass the staff. But for staff, we're going to take a hard line on the process, and we're going to say, you're in for the September meeting, October, whatever the month is.
Yeah, November, December.
You're going to be in November, December, or you're missing a year's worth of funding. And that we just have to hardline that for our process to keep the integrity of it. What the council does is what the council does. So we do as we're told.
Do you want to speak to?
Yeah, I can speak to it. It's like he said.
It's not. Yeah.
The reality is that the final decision is made at council. So that comes to approaching us to make sure the decisions that best represent what the community is doing. And I think, like you said, the road show, at one time, I have used to meet, especially out in Georgetown, quite a bit.
Okay.
And I got a lot of input through there. And we just have to get better at doing that. I know COVID messed a lot of things up, but we got to get better at listening to the people. When you got several people and that's another thing. A lot of times people they have constituents, so they don't know what the other part of town is doing unless light is shined upon it. Yeah. Like what happened in New River Town Center. More people started getting in, understanding that because they were being brought out in the community and they were listening. So we just got to do more of that throughout the city.
And it's one thing that the city manager brought up about the one city and not just a particular part of the city. I don't know if you guys was around when we actually came up with that whole campaign that looked at the city as a whole. And it was to do multiple things. It wasn't only, to have, a sovereign thought at one particular moment. It was to cover down on a lot of things. And so that's one of the desires, and I bring it up all the time, about our city council. Let's see them as a unified front representing our city and not just a ward here or a ward there. Because to tell you the truth, most of the time I see them together is when it's election time.
I was gonna say, that we talked about that if you're gonna run for office and you're serious about serving, not just sitting in this chamber over here, then you need to it's your responsibility as a council person, not the other way around, to establish a time frame and a location. So that, say if you're in Ward 1, the person who serves Ward 1 and one of the two people who are at large, both of them preferably, but the at-large person is responsible for the entirety of it. So when you come into this meeting, if we were meeting in here, you would see the Ward 1 person, you would see the two people who are elected at large, and the community people who want to come. Find a place where if you're interested in coming, you don't want to exclude anybody by space or time or anything like that. But just, and I realize how busy people are because people who do run for office have jobs and lives and things of that nature. But once again, if you put your name on a ballot, you need to be serious about the commitment to service. Now, we've seen on the county side, and I've seen on the city side too, where you go to events, and I don't care where you're going, you see the same person every time. It doesn't matter what part of the city it's in, where it is, you're always going to see that person, whether that's their ward or not. And many people, if you stop them in the mall or on the street or shopping, they don't have a clue who their council person is. They don't even have a sense of what ward they live in. Because we have so much flux of people coming in and out. Being on the Board of Elections, we have had many a conversation about the fact that people nowadays, because of technology, social media, everything else, the average person does not understand how the election process runs, point blank, period, from the bottom up. And so, but who's gonna school them? Well, maybe it's our responsibility. So I would say, my suggestion to council would be, you know what your ward is, you know where your churches are, you should if you ran for office. You need to establish a system within that ward that you represent of a meeting of a community, and that should include the two people who are at large because they have sworn to serve the entirety of the city of Jacksonville. And don't look at it as a hardship or a difficulty. Look at it as an opportunity to get acquainted with people, because you know how they'll call you when they're mad about something, and then but you never get any thank yous. Well, one thing about our project that I was talking about earlier is that we got a chance to see a lot of the people from this building to come out in the community, hear the beef, as the kids say, about whatever's going on, and give people, if they don't understand how the system works, they're angry because it hasn't been done in the time frame they want it to be done. If they understand how this process works and the fact that you are continually acting on these issues, the funding is an issue, how that all happens, then, you can't complain if you get it and you're a part of it, but you're consistently complaining if you don't have any idea how it's even working in the first place.
And that's why, when I was thinking about inviting the city manager, vision, because it'll give us an outlook. I did a quick tour in our neighborhood the other day, and what I noticed is, just my 10 closest neighbors, none of us are from here. But now we're staying here, and we're not going anywhere. But the same thing. Hey, you know who's over our? Oh, no, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But do you know the vision of our city? Long as my house keeps going up in value. Well, that has something to do with it. We're not bringing in economic opportunities, and we're not partnering with the partners that are not only in the city, but those who may be in the county also, then we're just here kind of living and not getting involved.
That's
with
why
it.
I always talk about, I said a lot of times people, I say they reside in Jacksonville, but they live other places because they go other places for entertainment. They go into other places to take their kids to see different shows and stuff like that. And we have to, and it's somehow we're gonna have to get the voices of those people to come to the table to start discussing, okay, what do you want? And I even talked about the young military folks because a lot of people that retire end up was originally the young folks that said they'll never come back to Jacksonville. So that voice has to come to the table. If Jacksonville is one of the worst bases to be at because of the lack of entertainment, we need to figure out why and start going in that direction to fix it.
And speaking of that, I don't know if you saw the report that came out. Onslow County is the number one when it came to median age of men, 25 years old, and number 8 for women, 31. That's where
Yeah.
we are right now, and we have an opportunity of innovation, a forward thought, vision, and progress if we can
Keep
get
them
out
here.
and not even keep them here, because a lot of those guys are getting out and staying here. You know, I'm talking about just 4 years, going down to UNCG, UNCW, you know, and
They
moving
are.
back here, going over to the community college and staying here. So those that we have the harvest,
Yeah, I would like to see those
but the
numbers,
laborers
because I
are
was saying, when I was working in transition, that was not the case.
Yeah.
They were actually, they might get their degrees here, but because of the lack of opportunities here, they were leaving. We used to lose a lot of talent, and we call it brain drain. And that's the same thing with people who actually grow up here because of the lack of opportunity, because the pay. You know, we don't have businesses that pay, you know, a good living wage. And that's why we say 30%, about 30% of our
Monthly median income.
right is below that. So because we don't have those jobs, so we're not keeping that.
that's because we got 25-year-olds too, men.
25.3 years old, right?
Yeah.
Men,
That's scary.
you know, they're not trying to, you know.
I'll make one more comment on what you were saying, Bishop, is that another initiative the council adopted this year was downtown development. A lot of times you think of downtown, you think of that's got to be someone else's group. But Tracy stepped up in this conversation and said, this is something that is a priority for us as well in neighborhood improvement services. So as you bring all the right partners to the table, we're working on a project right now for an incubator and a business hub. So when you're talking about these individuals, these men and women that are getting out of the military with a skill set, they get out and let's say they get that training and then they want to start that business. This project that we're working on, and we have some partners down in Wilmington that are phenomenal for us. I mean, we like them, but these individuals have that knowledge and skill set where they've been effective in Wilmington, and now they want to bring programming to us here to help us maximize our growth potential for business owners. I'll say young, but young means new to a business world from another world. And so if we can do that as part of this mission as well, we're going to be infinitely successful, and then we're going to see a lot of that brain drain sitting right here. And still, we just have to figure out the entertainment aspect then. But that's also part of downtown, because we're working with some of our partners now to open up some additional businesses downtown. So I think we'll have that hub. That's what I say. Hopefully we all open up our minds to what it could be, and then we start pulling those assets together that make it happen. So I think you're spot on with that concept.
And going back to what you were saying about, Mrs. Wright, what you said about the churches, our various community organizations could help make a push to open up their churches. Because in some cases that's not happening, you know, so we need to figure out how the best way to go about, you know, communicating with the, you know, I know we have the organization, you were saying the ministers, but we got to have a better communication utilizing that group to make sure that can happen.
Think about our first community meeting together. We went to an opportunity on a Saturday morning over at Sandy Run Church I just showed up for pancakes, and Mr. Jackson had the microphone, and it turned into an hour and a half community meeting. It was fantastic. I'd only been here a few weeks. We were answering questions. We had an active audience of, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 people,
Right.
It seemed like. But that was spot on because we had multiple staff, we had a council member, we had people in the community, and we were answering questions then.
Right.
And we've been talking about trying to replicate that in other places. But quite honestly, we haven't had that engagement
Right.
from other communities or those organizations yet to say, hey, how about you guys come in? And I agree with you. We've got to be active, which is why Mr. Jackson keeps pushing me to set up these meetings and get us out there. But that's part of our challenge, right? In FY24, starting in 9 days or so, is when the council initiatives go into effect to get that message out and then bring information back in.
And you know, suggestion. You know, what happened is we were going to Bell Fork Elementary as our church. First, we gave them, you know, some school supplies. You know, hey, if you need more, let us know. Hey, if you need breakfast, feed them. Let us know. We'll take care of it. to where last year we were trying to do it. You remember how school ended last year with all the shootings and things? We were trying to do an out of school thing. Well, this year we went to them and said, hey, we're going to do a big to do for the last day of school, red carpet event. And if y'all looked at the website, and it was great. And then guess what they did? Come back for the first day of school. One step at a time. And anytime we want to get something done, we have to be more aggressive with it from the council's point of view, whether it's getting into churches, different groups, different aspects, be there, show up, present, then every setting we've been in, I give him the mic, let him say something.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Everywhere.
At your church or
Everywhere.
when you're
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe
you're
if I'm
involved,
there,
you do
Yeah.
that. But
and that's the same thing. I think Miss Cindy, cause she's
How can I help?
not that guy, but Cindy, same thing.
right.
So I think that's what it is. It has to be that getting out of that comfort zone, getting out of that
And
box.
maybe we could send out a letter, especially to the churches, and then we get a response back of who wants to be involved in
Now,
this.
if you want to do that, right, just let me know
Yeah. we'll
when
do
you
that.
want to do it, who you want to do it. And this is an idea, and I know we have to move on, because it's not just church.
Yeah, it's the organization.
It's everything.
Right.
It's business.
Right.
It's everything, because we can say the church, but it will only go
It's
as far as
community.
I say, hey, we're gonna do this.
Right. But we have to hit the streets, because I know there's been events in Sandy Run where people have showed up to register people to vote, but it ended up being a cookout with a few people not knocking on any doors, and
Yeah.
that's never going to be effective. So you're right. It has to be a community effort.
Yeah, when we talk about the church as a building, we're not talking about necessarily the
Right.
congregation there. We're only talking about the physical structure, because it
Right.
gives us a meeting place
Right.
that we don't have in other places.
That's right.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the church as our faith, I mean, that gives us the ability to really connect with individuals. And
exactly.
that's for if you have a shared faith, then you get that opportunity, which for us, I mean, we share that same faith.
Yeah.
So we get that. But the building, we have a lot of partners in churches, which is great. We just need to tap into it and say, can we come and listen and maybe bring that back, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole.
And change the name. That gets people excited. Like, my wife, she has her building. She does what they call mixers, and elected officials come over there and they talking and they figuring out great stuff,
Right.
because, somebody may want to say something that they can't say in the church building.
It's true.
That's true, that's true.
I'm just
No, that's
trying to
reality.
put it out. And did you, before, I wanted to make sure we get everything, because we got to stay on target. You had anything else, sir, that?
I could go on for hours, but Tracy already looked at me because I'm long-winded.
Yeah.
But I just say the last comment is, I hope that vision-wise, we cast the widest net and say that for this year, let's do 1 year at a time, 1 day at a time, whatever the good Lord gives us. We focus on how to make the city as a whole better, and we bring that back. And I say for this committee specifically, you feed that back into Tracy in terms of the neighborhood improvement aspects. And then let's see what comes out of that process, because as Mr. Jackson says, we're going to funnel it straight back into council. And now that this council has engaged in vision planning throughout the year, I mean, because we're scheduled for 4, right? That's our goal. And if they're engaged in that process, they're going to have the opportunity to give us direction, which we'll then carry out to the community. So I think it's a great
that's going to
opportunity.
be great. Like, and if possible, and this is like pretty much probably for because every city council member sits on a board of doing something. They take that vision back to those committees and give it. So, just like we talked about the mayor, what are those things that concern him? And he came back with, this is what concerns us. And we take those as pastors, and we're not only praying about them, but we're thinking of ways. So if this happened, before it happens, this is how we're going to handle it. Not so if you guys if you can just bring that up to your group of city council.
And the first meeting of the year, Bishop Smith, so after July 1, here in a few days, what we'll do is we're going to put together those initiatives on a handout.
Okay.
Every advisory board and committee is going to get a copy of that. So
Okay.
at the next meeting, Tracy's going to have a copy of that, and it'll be in front of you. You'll have that, which was set for FY24 by the council,
Okay.
and then know that by November of this year, they're setting the initiatives for FY25. So that's where the goal is, where they're constantly thinking about the vision, and that's where some of that input could come in. So before November, if you have a meeting where you want to get input back to them, you just give input back, right? You could give it directly to Mr. Jackson, or you could write something down and send it in. But that's how we're just trying to keep council focused on the vision aspect, because that's where they're good at. They set policy and they define the vision for how we're moving forward. They do that, we do what we're told, and we carry it out. It's going to work out effectively here.
And I think that'll help the city as a whole prioritize what's really important, not in a point of time, but as we move forward. So, okay.
If I could make one quick suggestion, that I've been on committees where it has worked very nicely to put the money issue aside. When you ask for input and whoever's giving you the input, if you constrain them by talking about fiscal policies, fiscal years, budget money, all of that, people don't really get that because they get what they're doing in their house. When we were on one committee, we did we just call it our Santa Claus wish list, and we put that big post-it thing on the wall. We said, don't even talk about the money. Forget about the money, because in my opinion, there's always money to do what you want to do if you want to do it, and that's God's honest truth. And vice versa, there's no money to do something that you don't want to do, whether there is there or not. So if you can get people to talk about what they'd like to see happen without the constraints of how much is it going to cost, is it in the budget for this year, forget about all of that. Let people just put it out there. Let people just exercise their thoughts and their hopes and dreams. They're going to raise their kids here. They're thinking about, this kid is in the stroller. And if I'm going to be here when they graduate from high school, this is 18 years down the road. So quit talking about how much it's going to cost. We don't have the money right now. Just talk about what you would like to see happening. Because if you put it out there and there's enough people talking about it and it comes to fruition, there is money, I'm telling you, to do what you want to do. It's not necessarily here, but there are sources of money. And I know, when people look at what you're doing as a community, they see that. And, I'm thinking about Mackenzie Scott, is that her name? That you can't be getting ready. You have to be ready with your stuff. So that means you have to have a drawer full of dreams. And somebody who comes along and says, I've got, she's, the kind of money she's giving away is change money. It's not due today. It is fundamental change money. And she gives it to groups that had that drawer with dreams and hopes in it. And she says, okay, I'm ready to write you a check for $30 million. Now, what are you going to do with it? You can't get ready for that. You got to be ready for that. Right. And it's possible to do that. So if you take the funding and the money issue out of it and just let people get in a room and talk about what they'd like to see, what they'd like to do, what they'd like to be, what they'd like their children to have, and put that together in plans and forget about the money, because if it's good enough, the money will come. It absolutely will come. It may not come from here, but it will come. But if people feel constantly constrained in little boxes about what I can dream about, you're not getting anything out of them.
All right. And so before we move on, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Just be flexible. I think that's it, flexible in our approach to things. So thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, now we would normally have a planning board update by Mr. Steve. And so now we'll go to the community development. And if you don't mind, I know you wanted to have your brief. We'll put that right before we close out. If that's okay?
Yeah, because it's not going to be very, we only have one meeting already, so.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure we get it maybe on the agenda on a regular basis.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Ms. Tracy?
Good evening again, everyone. Just wanted to give an update about CDBG planning. Currently, the CDBG Funding CARES Act, I am pleased to say that we have expended all of those funds before we were due to spend that, thinking about 6 years. So we have expended all of that money, and HUD is happy. Hopefully it helped most of our citizens to be able to either help pay their water bills, help pay their rent in some areas. And of course, we were able to complete the kitchen and the Onslow County Community Outreach Shelter. So that's what the bulk of that money was used for. So we have expended those funds. So this is going to be the last that I talk about the CDBG funding for the CARES Act. We are
And so
I
those
got them
numbers are
scheduled.
solid right there, right? The 283 and 137, those numbers are solid.
Yes, sir, for the water utility assistance?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And the only reason why I asked that question, because that's a big help to to our communities. You know?
Yes, sir. We only have $1,800 left to cover for the water utility assistance, and that's for the families that are in their 6-month window to continue to help in, and any new families that come on board. So there's only $1,800 left, which is essentially about 3 more months.
Okay, thank you.
Also want to talk about the annual action plan. We are in the planning process of that. Our annual action plan has been approved by City Council, and we are in the process of getting it approved by HUD. Once HUD approves that, then the money will be put into our account at the federal level, and we can start, spending that money. With the annual action plan, of course, we had a review for the process for the nonprofits, and we use, of course, our members of NESAC to help us along with staff for recommendations, and that also has been approved by council. As far as CD projects, let me back up. As far as this annual action plan, this is the last year of the current 5-year plan. So we're going to start, as Mr. Ray alluded to, we're going to start planning for the 5-year plan, and I am looking forward to incorporate many more aspects of how the community responds to what it wants, as far as city council and city management and staff want to see in their city. The current survey tool that we use, we usually get more than just CDBG answers. And, those answers, even though we can't use, we can forward those to other departments so that, they will see this is what the community would like to see.
Okay.
So I'm excited. We had about 157 responses, and that is well above what we usually have. So I am very pleased with the responses that we get, even though most of them are not CDBG related, but it's an opportunity for folks to voice their opinion and give their input. We're also going to be developing and updating our citizen participation plan. We're going to be updating our fair housing plan, and we also have a requirement by HUD to develop a climate change resiliency plan. So we have to have that also listed in our 5-year plan. We currently also have our housing counseling agency that we still have to operate, and we need to use that to have that to be able to use our CDBG funding. So we have a lot of plans in the works, and we're, I'm looking forward to working with City Council with this advisory committee to move forward to expand our 5-year annual action plan.
Now, this is just me being, very young and inexperienced, right? Not only the CDBG, but now we're a counseling agency.
Yes.
And we also take care of all of this other stuff from your office, right?
Yes.
Are there grants, city budget that's been approved, or can it be an amendment? Because they need help in their office. And I'm just bringing it up because it's only so much we can keep pushing their way without.
I agree, and I bring it up because I know what they do. I know what they used to do, and they were understaffed then. So I mean, the only way to get these things done is to increase the staff. So we gotta work towards it, because
Okay.
something's gonna fall between the cracks
Because,
if you can't
no,
do
so
it.
my question, because the council, I mean, he just gave me a whole lesson. So
Right.
I'm going back to the council for everything now. I know in regular budgetary things that, there can be amendments and say, hey, I know we were gonna push this until next year. But can there be prioritizing once again?
One thing I could say, what Mr. Ray had talked about is that he will be evaluating, I think he might have mentioned that to you, evaluate the departments. And if there's a greater need, we're not waiting till the next budget year.
So
It
how,
actually be a living document, which
Because-
budget should be anyway.
because right now, if we have 50 people show up to their office to be counseled on something, one person cannot do that. And now that means some other work is gonna be undone. So can that be something that's brought up sooner than later? And if I need to come to the meeting to just ask the question.
I think it's always advised for citizens to come in and give their input. If they have questions like this,
Okay,
you know, like I said, we supposed to be taking care of those things, but sometimes when people come and bring up their concerns in that public forum, then it might prick the nerve or the heart of the council, so they then could get a better understanding, especially if you can explain as articulate as you can about what you see going on from this committee, from your perspective from here. So I think it's very important.
okay.
And the way he described it this evening actually has been the way it should have been going all along, at least to me, which is why many cities that we visited years ago when we took some field trips from here and went out, they had an entire, a department managing millions of dollars, was their community development department.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were cognizant of the fact that council saw that they could not do all of this with 2 or 3 people. We went to cities where they had, 10, 15 people working
No,
in
but
the one
that's
department
but that's my
and handling
question.
this money.
Is it a budget issue or
It's a
is
will issue as far as I'm concerned.
well, I mean, like I said, I don't never want to
To me,
put.
it is.
Talked about
Like,
the
I
grant
never,
writers.
you know, I
and
never
why
wanna-
isn't there a grant
I don't wanna
We
put
need a
anybody on
professional
the-
grant writer for the city of Jacksonville. I think the county, I heard with rumor control, has taken that step. The city needs a professional grant writer, full-time. They need a person who is not just, I took a I have nothing against certifications, none of that. I'm talking about somebody who is experienced in that kind of work, because there's an art form to writing those kinds of grants. $20,000 grants are wonderful, $30,000 grants are wonderful. We're talking about serious money. There are cities that we visited from when we went to visit who use this whole allocation from HUD, what do we have, 350,000, whatever, as leverage money to get, because they're going after the $30 million one. And they only want 10% in cash, so they take their entire allocation. They leverage this kind of money. So you're not trying to kill yourselves out here working and doing this kind of volume of work on 350 grand. And when I looked at the old paperwork, because I've been on here since '87, our grant when I came on was almost twice this.
We went to High Point.
We're almost twice this, doing in some ways less work because there were less demand and fewer issues. And so, but once again, if you're not asking for it in a way that makes people give it to you.
But this is what I'm bringing up, right? I live in Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is the city I pay taxes in. And I got elected officials who should do something about the lack of people and the amount of work they have to do. It's okay to get a grant to do it later or to bring in some people to help out, but day-to-day work, we have elected officials who can get in a room, get out of budget, and get the people we need in the right departments in our city, because we pay taxes.
Yeah, and what I
And-
said
and see-
before about you can't get ready, you have to be ready all the time. So without even having the notion that this is even gonna happen, You all have been here for a while, you're experienced, you probably already know this, but there needs to be a drawer somewhere in one of your offices that has in there what we need and how much, not even how much it would cost, just what we need, because you can't tell how much it would cost and how much they would pay in. But what would you need to be able to do what we're talking about implementing that we just heard tonight? What would this department need? Because if you're gonna run all of these programs, everything he mentioned tonight, the natural place to put it in is this department. But I was sitting here thinking, I'd be horrified if I was the two of you all thinking that somebody's gonna come in here and hand me another portfolio with this level of stuff and expect us to be able to do it. But you know what, if they think you can do something and all I have to do is give it to you and hand it to you and tell you to do it and it gets done, then that's what's going to happen.
We call that church.
Well, I don't know. I have other terms I would call it.
But I'm just trying to make sure that I paint the picture right.
Would you need clerical?
And I'm saying it out loud.
What would you need?
We can go to those other places, right? And they're doing a great job, with what we got representing our city.
But if we don't bring it back.
But if we don't bring it back up,
implement it.
yeah, if we don't bring it back up right then it's just, and that's why I'm trying to bring up the solution of saying, hey, since this is a living document,
Right.
Talk to our other elected officials and say, hey, this is an issue, but this is the solution that we can get something done. Because I've heard, because I got ears different, that they were supposed to be a part-time worker. And then the part-time worker went away, and then there was supposed to be maybe a temp position, but they got none of that.
So, and the point to me is the same. You can't go asking for money, because the first question I would ask you if I were in your position would be, what you gonna do with it?
There you go.
So then you can't be, well, let me think about it, what would we do? No, you have to say, okay, I'm glad you asked me, and pull out a whole stack of stuff that you all have been doing and been absorbing and been managing, and say, we need this person, this one, and this one. We need these 3 people who can get us to where we can handle what you're proposing already and council has already decided on, not this 5-year plan.
Yeah. Oh, and the reason why I brought it up here is just to get it as a matter of record.
Absolutely.
So in this conversation can go on. So next year when we're talking about the same thing, it should not be the same issue, and I don't expect it to be the same issue. And that's why, I put it back in Mr. Brian Hands to talk to the city council. We've already talked to Mr. Josh, city manager. So I think I kind of beat that. I took your time. I'm sorry.
Well, I also wanted to share with you all at the city council, at the last city council meeting, that we, city council approved for a developer to act in partnership with the city, so that we can apply for a $2 million grant from the North Carolina Office of Resiliency and Recovery. So we're gonna act as a pass-through so that he can build some supportive housing for the homeless at a site that is known as far as Phoenix Park. So East Carolina Community Development Incorporation, they are going after some money, and we did get approval from council to enter into a letter of intent, and that was completed and it was sent off. So if he's funded, then we'll be overseeing that project as well.
But will you get a position out of it? See, this is what I'm talking about.
What did say that again?
I asked her, will you get a position out of that grant? Oh, it was great, good news. It can be great news if we work this thing right. So now that they have entered into this partnership and this is looking like it might come to fruition, my question as a member of this committee would be, will they get a position out of that money? Because you can't put it in their laps. No, you can't. You have to stop stop doing that in that way. Because I promise you, I have sat on committees in Raleigh, all over the place, and when this kind of thing happens, and you structure that grant, and you write out the budget to apply for that money, the positions to run it are written in the grant.
In the grant, yeah.
I promise you.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That is how business
That's how it's
runs.
done,
That's
yeah.
how it's done. But, you know, that's why I asked the question, straight and direct. You know, if this turns out, because I saw it in the paper and I was thrilled about it, and especially the, you know, the possibility of that kind of money. Where is the position to bring in someone who is going to do all of the writing and the reading and the handling and the book and all of the stuff that's going to have to go on, because someone has to be accountable to make sure that that $2 million, if you get it, is spent the way it should be spent.
That is correct.
And somebody has to report the stuff in there. All that has to be done.
So
They
even,
should not
so
have
even
to
in that's
include that in
something,
what they're
once
already doing.
again,
Where's the
Need.
position in that money?
There's that,
I mean,
that need.
and there's the need again, like we were saying, maybe, you know, not a Band-Aid, but a part-time person immediately. I don't know how that can happen, you know, that could fill those voids that they have. And I know we're just kind of throwing things out, but you know, I got some thoughts of what I wanted to say and do. So
Yes.
okay, thank
And
you.
so if we're gonna do, so if there's an appropriate time, if you could let us know if there's an appropriate meeting, like say right after fiscal year turns over, or whenever this is discussed, that some comments can be made that, you know, because I would stand there and tell them, I am assuming that you are going to create a position, you're going to have a position written into that application.
Well, we don't even have a
Need.
position written in for the stuff they doing, so I can guarantee you they probably not going.
But that's
Right
a
in
start,
for
like I
this
said,
specific
but this
one,
is
yeah.
the beginning, yeah. You have to be thinking along the way of what everybody else is thinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Other corporations, businesses, they would not even consider asking for money without you telling them, here's a person to run that program.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I advise is you can always go and give city manager a call, come in and sit down with them. And you can always voice your concerns that way,
Okay.
because he's the one that hire as well as fire.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
All right, thank you. Okay.
So also, wrapping up, we're going to talk about our rehabilitation projects. Of course, we finished the projects at Country Club Villas, and we have the before and after. The last part of this project, of course, was just the do a light paving in the parking lot for those units that are connected with CDBG funding. We currently also have a potential project for a rental rehab that we're partnering with an investor. He has purchased 2 units in New River, and he is going to be partnered with with Section 8, East Carolina Human Service Agency. So he is going to put those units on the in the inventory for them to send people with Section 8 vouchers to rent those units. And the partnership that we currently working on right now is we're going to be providing some CDBG funding, and and it's going to be in a low interest loan. And as a result, we're going to end up with at least 4 affordable rental units in that area. You know that 694 came out of the New River area, so this is an opportunity, although it's small, but this is an opportunity for us to invest some CDBG dollars for some affordable rentals in that area.
Okay.
I've seen some of those over by the nursing home. Someone has units over by the nursing home in New River.
The town center.
Yeah,
Town
it
center.
looks-
that's CI, that's town
It
center.
Yes,
looks
CIG.
really nice.
Yeah, CIG is
Really
doing
nice.
it.
Yeah.
That's the first phase that they completed.
Yes.
Yeah, as you turn the corner.
Yeah.
If you turn the
Yeah.
corner, it looks really
Oh,
nice.
okay.
So we are finishing up that project as well. And that's all I have as far as CDBG projects and community development. I'll turn it over to Pamela Trent.
Excuse me,
Thank you.
Tracy, let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Like if someone else had some units available and they might open them up for the same thing, what would they need to do?
Well, they would need to, contact us. We'll look, and of course, they have an application process. We'll look at their financials to make sure and do our analysis to make sure that it would be a good loan to make. And in exchange for loaning this low interest money, then the owner will agree to rent to low income. And the easiest way for us to track that so that he won't have to get that documentation to prove that is to go through the Section 8 office. And then they will agree to rent for a period of time. In this case, this is going to be 10 years. So we have some stable rental houses that's going to be in that area for at least 10 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go forth with demolition. So we've completed 162 units, and there are 4 that's currently in the pipeline. We are moving into 1 unit here shortly due to weather. Then we have commercial building that will be taken down. We've had partnership with the fire department on 2 units to actually be able to help them with their training. They've completed 1 already, and that's the one that's going to go through demolition in Georgetown. And then for July, they're going to be doing training on another home. So we'll have 4 units that will be coming down before we meet again in August, hopefully. Our housing classes, we have our money management. We've completed our last one for the summer, and then we're moving into October 7th. We have another one that's tentatively planned for August 5th. That one will have its own marketing once everything has been solidified. But we'll say the date is a Saturday for August 5th. Let me make sure it's the 5th, right? Yes, August 5th, which is a Saturday. That one is a little bit more unique because we're partnering with another financial agency as well that is focusing on mastering the mind of psychology. So we're looking at coming at it from 2 sides. The first side being the mindset behind handling your finances and what does it mean to actually get on the road to handling your finances, handling your budget, and then going into the actual money management piece of it.
Great idea.
So we'll have that one coming up. And then in fiscal year 24, money management will expand to attach other parts of finances as well. Our homebuyer education class, the next one that we have coming up is September the 16th. We're already taking registrations for that class. The class is $25 per person. We have our classes now at the new Jacksonville station, which is at 1300 North Marine Boulevard. And like I said, we are starting to take registrations currently for our September class. And then we'll end on November 4th. Since we met last in April, we went from having 2 units available, 427 and 429, to now only having 1 unit available. So we have sold 427 Myrtlewood Circle, and we are in the very, very close process of having 429 Myrtlewood Circle sold as well. So that will be all 5 units and Country Club Villas now sold. We are looking at potentially having more come available, but at the time, we're just keeping close. We are also in the process, and for 429 Myrtlewood, to bring back to memory, is the blue unit interior. The back porch was added on, and then the units all have been privacy fenced in. So they are ready and available. The 429 Myrtlewood Circle is a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath at $100,000 with the for sale by owner through the city at 2% interest rate. Yes, awesome. So we're looking for more opportunities to make it available. We do have for homeowner opportunities, if there's any general contractors or builders that are available and looking for opportunities to build low moderate income housing, affordable housing. We have 4 lots that are available that we have up for a bid. for them to bid on, they can contact us at 910-938-5286.
Say that again.
910-938-5286. So we are looking for general contractors, builders that are willing to build affordable housing. The 2 lots we have available are downtown across from the Infinite Prague New High School. So we have 2 lots there. And then the other 2 lots are on Cox Avenue by the
Do
KFC.
you have to use those to build low income or moderate?
Yes,
Yes,
they
sir.
were purchased with CDBG funding.
Okay, does the city have like a surplus land list so people can go and look at it
I'm not aware of.
You mean the same one?
for sale?
Oh.
Yeah, like when that old fire department over there in, off Henderson was up, they have a lot of like
Lots or
surplus,
buildings.
surplus buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah, you would need to contact,
The lawyers,
the city manager's office.
Okay.
Yeah. You talking about for what the city owns?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what.
But yes, anyone that has contacts with a builder that is looking for additional work to build homes that will be affordable for our buyers, because these are the buyers that can get qualified for a loan. However, with today's market, they're not able to find a house that will meet their requirements and be able to meet the financing. So with our down payment assistance programs and now our partnerships with community partner loan pools and North Carolina Housing Finance, we're looking for those opportunities to layer a package together to be able to make home ownership affordable. Okay. Our nonprofits, our next executive roundtable is August 16th. And this is in partnership with Jacksonville Police Department. The topic is what nonprofit executive directors and board members need to know about active shooter events. So as a nonprofit, do you have a safety plan in place? And has your nonprofit looked at what to do in the event you were encountered with an active shooter case?
And this is part of the process as far as nonprofits getting training and, having an opportunity to see what we're offering, in different topics other than the required funding opportunity workshops and of course the board training.
And those programs are really very good to go to.
All right. And lastly, our Jacksonville Youth Council, I'll make an announcement. We are currently in our New River Institute program this week. It is a new summer camp that's been in conjunction with the city and with partnership in Sturgeon City with the Art Institute, Public Safety Institute, and Science Institute. This week is currently taking place. And then our Jacksonville Youth Council will kick off their Youth Empowerment Summer Series in July. So those dates and marketing will be forthcoming.
How many kids do you have, do you know?
For the institutes, it's roughly 60 between the 3. We are actually doing a leadership project with them, doing a public service announcement on vaping. And so each institute will take their portion. So art is coming up with different artistic expressions about vaping. Science will bring out the scientific part of it.
Oh, nice.
And then public safety will do their part of how does the vaping impact students from a legal standpoint. And then we're going to combine all 3 of them together to do a PSA.
Great.
All right.
That is so much needed.
And that's
All right, now it's time for our one city, our city, my city moment. If anybody want to point out any organizations, individual people or groups, this would be the time to do so.
I was just gonna mention that you have
There you
Juneteenth up there, so that was very well received, I thought.
well, we'll let you discuss Juneteenth.
Well, we had the Onslow Civic Affairs Committee every year. Well, since we have an observance committee that deals with issues like that. And we take this on. This young lady she works here at the city. And
Crystal.
beautiful voice, Crystal. And she came along with us, and she just did her thing. I liked it this year because of the way it was really streamlined and done very well and very compactly. We did an 8:30 session over at the Human Services Building, came over here at 9:30, and 10:30 out at Burton Park. And just an overview of what it is, and you still do have lots of people, irrespective of race, who don't know what it is and what it means. And speaker was excellent. So I just thought
Who was the
everybody
speaker?
got together to,
Mario Harris with MENAC.
yeah, right here at the end. And just talked about, and you know, I didn't grow up knowing anything about this.
Oh, really?
No, not at all. And now my parents, after we finally, you know, when you talk about what it means and so forth and so on, because they talked about when she sang the Negro National Anthem. And I think somebody in the introduction of her mentioned that in many communities, black communities, and my mother at one point told me that some years ago, that they didn't sing the a regular national anthem, Star Spangled Banner. That was the one they did. She grew up in Alabama. And, but you know, people don't pass on things and that kind of thing. So I did not know anything about this until
Really?
I moved here.
So I grew up in Texas, so that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. But it was very interesting. And how it translates, I like the way we tried to make it translate to what's happening right now so that people can see the relevance. Because, you know, sometimes they say, well, that's history. That happened back, you know, so many years ago. But the relevance of not knowing the whole idea that people took 2.5 years to find out that this had actually happened, and so that, and how much it benefited them. It took 2.5 years, and why it did is important for kids to know, because there are things that are going on around the country that are happening, and people need to be cognizant of it and understanding why they are happening, so you can take action to do something about it if you care about it. But I really enjoyed participating in it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't get a chance, though, to go to any of the other community activities, so.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else?
The food pantry at St. Julia continues. It's located at St. Julia, but it is a separate, I want to say a
Is it part of
separate.
the North Carolina Food Bank Society?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
and it still continues at St. Julia on Fridays, and so if anyone wants to come out and get in the line in the mornings on Saturday,
Yeah, if you wanna-
on Friday mornings.
Yes, ma'am. And if you guys have a flyer, you know, bring it, you know, so we can share it around and things like that too. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. So I know Ms. Marcia wanted to possibly put something on the future agendas.
Well, I just quickly wanted to mention, and both of you all know about Ben, you know, that was, and because of the way COVID happened, I can't even get my head around when did you all start that up and when it was. It's probably further back than I realized, but it's Bayshore Estates neighborhood.
Okay.
And it was the pilot program for this going into the neighborhood and improvement process and
Yes,
so
ma'am.
forth. And we did that for, what did you say, 2 years, almost three,
about 3 years.
with their direct involvement from the city. And we've decided to start meeting again. So we had one meeting already. I want to say, what did I tell you? I think it was May. It was the first Monday in May. And I think we're going to go to that schedule the second month of the quarter, which would be May, August, February, May, August, and November. Is that right? I think so. The first Monday, and trying to get other people in the neighborhood and so on, because people have really moved in here, and I can see it really changing here in downtown. And I think they had invited the council and the city manager to the next one. Now, we decided to go quarterly with it because it was too intense in trying to just, in the beginning, you get all hyped up and then you kind of, whoa, you know. And so we're gonna meet quarterly.
Okay.
So I'll bring a report back from there. All we did last time primarily was to make a list of issues that people had. And some of them seemed to be the same, about 10 or 12 of them. But the biggest thing I think that came out that we all agreed upon was what I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
That they like to see us and conceivably everybody around City of Jacksonville getting their people who represent them on council, plus the 2 at-large people, to find a way, once a year at least, to just go out in their community, shake hands with people, let them know I'm your council person, because most people don't know who they are, and just talk about some of the things that they are concerned about, in areas, because you do have different concerns. This is the oldest part of the city down here, so a lot of the things that people have a concern about are structural issues, streets, things like that. But a lot of, so many things were addressed during the time we did it before. It was a great exercise, and
Yes.
It really, really was. So I would encourage anyone who's listening that if you hear about this or you want to get organized, they can come to our meeting. I mean, it's not an open, closed meeting or anything, and see what goes on, and get some people to start one up, and do their thing, and it's worth it. It really is.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions or other comments? All right.
I was gonna say, under future agenda topics, since we had Mr. Ray with us today, a lot of the things that was questioned in your minutes will be moved to the August meeting.
Yes,
So that way we can get updates for those.
Okay, thank you.
We have one quick correction. Actually, we can't take any action on it. But where was that, Paula? You showed me.
Paula Wright, I have a new name.
Oh. What was that on page,
It was on the
one, two,
third page.
page of the minutes down under questions and comments?
Oh. I'll update since it's not adopted yet.
Yeah.
I
And you have to
circled
tear it
it.
up. All you gotta be going there,
I circled it,
pull
I
that
was
one out,
gonna do
put
this
the
to
new one out,
Tracy
and
and
be
go.
done.
Yeah, I'll update it. All right.
Key dates.
Upcoming key dates. So July 4th, City Hall will be closed. It's on a Tuesday. So please be careful in your celebrations. The city and not the city, but the county does have, Onzo Pond, so they have their freedom, and I think the base has their
They do.
celebration as well.
Oh.
So, be careful and be mindful as you're out. August 1st is National Night Out. Neighborhood Improvement Services will have tables. So we definitely invite you all to come out and partake with us in our annual night of resources and meet in the community. August 16th, we talked about that one already with the Executive Roundtable. And August 18th is the Defeat Poverty Festival, which will be held in conjunction with East Carolina Human Services Agency. It's their annual event. They do a resource fair in the parking lot with different agencies out there. We set up a table as well to push out our information and things that's going on. But it's a great opportunity for the community to come out and see what agency is out there, what resources are available. Last year was able to meet some agencies that had funding available that was helping people with their needs with utilities. So as other agencies ran out of money, I could direct them to that agency.
Now, where is this held?
Is that the parking lot in New River?
New
River.
We're in the lot.
Right
Oh,
on the
yeah.
Zecca Road we went.
Between Zecca and the building back there, that whole parking lot. And if anybody has, would like some table space, you know, because we're gonna use the list we had of people who did come, and go, because time is going by so quickly.
Right.
And, come on over and that's what I mentioned before, that this is a good opportunity for elected officials to come on out, because we see the same folk, you and Benedict, everything. So we're saying, come on out, let people, meet you and so
I have one thing to say.
Yes.
And that we'll get, look at me like that.
Damn, I was.
I just forget. But we're taking bags for the North Carolina Food Bank for hurricane season to Marine Chevrolet. So fill up a bag and drop it off at Marine Chevrolet. They're asking you to drop it there.
Just I mean.
Non-perishable food, canned goods and stuff.
Okay, Marine
You can
Chevrolet.
take it to Marine Chevrolet and drop it off. so they can take it to the food bank so they'll be ready for the hurricane.
Is that kind of right now, starting
Yeah,
right now?
it's happening right
Take it
now,
whenever?
all
Okay.
over. Ours is Marine Chevrolet and, one Marine credit union, but I don't know which one they said. But Marine Chevrolet is the one I went down to.
All right.
And then these are the meeting dates for the end of the year. We have October 30th is a change from normal that was voted on last meeting. Once we adopt the minutes, then that will stand, but to go ahead and mark your calendars for that change in October. And then December 18th is the week before Christmas.
Okay.
All right,
18.
we do have reappointments that will come, that have been identified, and then elections is August meeting. So we need to go ahead and, you go ahead and start thinking about who's running for chair, who's running for vice chair.
I think my term is over with. I can't do it no more.
That's correct.
Lord Jesus.
Hmm.
I said, Lord Jesus.
Call it. But I wouldn't necessarily use that one on that one. I use it on something more important.
I could call him anytime.
Right, so, hey, thank you guys for, being here tonight, thank you to the viewing audience for watching. So, hey, Ms. Glory brought up hurricane season, so be safe, get your hurricane kits ready, and, hey, have a great night, and I would like to call this meeting adjourned.